Hi, this is Jennifer with Make My Heart Smile, and today I'd love for you to crochet along with me. This is a series of crochet lessons where you'll learn beginner basic to easy to intermediate level crochet skills. Check out my other tutorials in this series to see more. Written instructions will always be in the description below. Today's lesson is the second lesson, and it is the single crochet stitch, one of the most basic crochet stitches. So let's get started. First, of course, you'll need your materials. I'm using a J 6mm crochet hook, and today you will need a stitch marker, and if you, while you're practicing, do want to make a small little project, you may need a darning needle, which is a blunt and big-eyed needle, often called the darning needle, and a pair of scissors. Whoops. All right, so once you have your materials and you're in a comfortable position, and I am seated at my craft table here, you'll be ready to get started with our lesson. So today I, if you notice, have two different yarns. My Woobles tube-like polyester cotton yarn that I think is great for beginners, and I also have a just worsted weight acrylic yarn. And I hope you've been practicing your chaining. I'm going to show you it on here. If making your slip knot and chaining, if you've seen the other video, you might notice that with acrylic yarn, I don't know if you've noticed any trouble with splitting, which is where the yarn strands come apart and your hook goes through those and gets all snagged. That might be a sign that you might want to go to a tube-like yarn where there are no strands to split. So that's just a little tip. Also, if you have any remnants of yarn that you might be using to practice, and it's all just a snaggled, knotty mess, I have another video about how to make a center pull yarn ball with any yarn that you might have. Of course, if you have gone to the craft store and bought yourself brand new ball or skein, however you want to say it, ball of yarn, and it's brand new and you still have that label on it, slip that label off and you will notice that the yarn will either be coming from the center, you might have to dig a little bit to find the center, or it might be coming from the outside, whichever you prefer, as long as that you're able to have your yarn, you know, working for you, not against you. That would be great in learning crochet. Okay, so you've got your materials ready, and let's talk about form and tension. So picking up your crochet hook, we are holding it like this. I am right-handed, and your hook should be pointed in that direction. And then when we're looking at holding the working yarn in our left hand, we are always looking to have that yarn anchored in some way and able to glide through our fingers easily. You don't want your tension to be too tight, and you don't want it to be too loosey-goosey. So when we are making that slip knot and chaining to begin most any crochet project, then we are thinking about those things. So here we go with our slip knot. Again, this is how I make a slip knot. I grab it, twist it, grab it, twist it. With my two fingers on my right hand, I pinch and pull through. Okay, so there's our slip knot. We put that onto our hook. If you want to rewatch my first lesson, you might do that. I hope you've been practicing your chaining. So we are going to hold this yarn. I slip it through just around my ring finger in my pinky finger, and then I've got my job to do with my left hand. The left hand has a job to do and the right hand has a job to do. And so yarning over, and I pinch with my thumb and my index finger of my left hand. I like to pinch and hold to pull through. Okay, so yarning over, pulling through to make those chains. Let's chain 15. So I've got my slip knot and I've got 2 chains so far. Yarning over, pinching that to hold the work. Chain 3. I'm going to go a little faster. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And as you notice, I've got this, when I am using my middle finger to yarn over. So the reason for that is when you have just a chain here at the beginning, it's not a lot to grab onto. It can be a little awkward. So when you're getting started, if you want to have that working yarn between gliding through those fingers there and then pinching your work, often you will see me holding that working yarn maybe in my middle finger like that, so that I can just guide the hook around for a yarn over and pull through. That's 11 chains, 12 chains, 13 chains, 14 chains. But if you want to let go, you can do that too. Yarn over. There's my 15th chain. Okay. So I hope you've been practicing making chains, and whatever rhythm you find works for you is perfectly fine, as long as you are in a relatively correct form and position and your tension isn't too loose or too tight. So obviously this would be too loose. You'll often see me using my finger on my right hand to my index finger on my right hand to kind of hold the loop on my hook. So it shouldn't be so tight that you can't pull your hook through, but it shouldn't be too loose that it's just slipping off your hook constantly. But you'll often see me kind of anchoring it with my index finger. Okay, so we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And when I say counting our chains or chain 15, I'm talking about those V's that you see. And so we're counting those from our slip knot. That's not counted as a stitch, obviously. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so there's our 15th chain, and the loop on your hook, your working loop there, is never counted as a stitch or a chain. Okay, so there's our 15th chain. Now we're going to learn the single crochet stitch going back across, which means we're going to need to insert our hook. And so when patterns say insert your hook into the second chain from the hook, that means that we have our loop on the hook, which is never counted. And then this chain here, 1, 2. So 2 V's from the hook. Now, I'll talk about a turning chain in a minute. For single crochet, you have 1 turning chain at the end of each row. So this is what we're going to consider that to be, that first one. So we're going to insert our hook into the second V, or the second chain from the hook. And when we're looking at the structure of a stitch, this is a good time to look and learn. So here is the front, or the right side of our work, and looking at just a chain, there isn't much to see. So we've got the front and then we've got the back, and on the back of a chain you will see these little bumps, and on the front you will see the V's, and so this is considered the front. Now each V is considered to have 2 parts, and so we have the back loop, which is the top when you're holding it like this. And then the bottom is called the front loop. The front meaning it's closest to your body, the front loop. The back loop, the front loop. Okay, and so when you're working back and forth in rows, you're going to be looking at the V's looking just like this at the top of each row when you're going back and forth. So back loop, front loop. And I think when we have an initial chain and we're just learning the basics, that right now inserting our hook into the back loop only is going to be the easiest for us. So 1, 2. So this is my second V from the chain, and the back loop there is where I'm going to insert my hook. So this is where I'm inserting it. Okay, right through there. And now make sure that you've got your working yarn in your hand, your left hand, not the tail, not our chain, but the working yarn in our hand, and then pinch your chain so that you have that anchored. Okay, so we've inserted into that back loop, and we're going to yarn over, which means putting the yarn over the hook and pulling through. Okay, so now we have 2 loops on our hook. Okay, we're going to yarn over again. And as you can see, I just used my index finger to do that. I am not taking my thumb away from holding my work. Okay, so that's a yarn over, and then you're going to pull it through both loops on your hook. You've just made your first single crochet stitch. Yay! So we're going to look at that again and do that a few more times very slowly. So now when I say insert your hook, well, where do we insert it? This is your first single crochet that you just made, and then you see the rest of your chain. So we're going to look for that next chain, which is right here. Okay, front loop, back loop, and we're going to put our hook, insert our hook into the back loop only. So right there. Okay, and we're going to yarn over, pull up that loop. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over again and pull through both loops. Okay, look for your next V. So now we've made 1, 2 single crochet stitches, and then the next V would be right here. Okay, right here. And we're going to put our hook right into that back loop only. Insert the hook, pull up that loop, 2 loops on our hook, yarn over again, pull through both loops. Okay, look for your next V right there. Insert your hook into the back loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop so that you have 2 on your hook. Yarn over, pull through both. Now your tension shouldn't be so tight that you are like this, okay? If you need to take a minute, pause the video, relax, take a breath, you're doing great. So your tension should be just so that nothing is falling out of your hands and nothing's too loose, and you'll have to eventually, grab some more yarn. So your left hand is going to come away, and then being able to reposition that yarn and reposition your posture or your form is super important to practice because that will help you in the long run. So when you pick it up again, it might look really confusing, but this is the single crochet stitch we just made, and you'll see that back loop that we had grabbed. So we're looking for the next back loop right there. There's our next V, and we're going to insert our hook. So the pattern or the directions are insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over again, pull through 2 loops. Okay, that's a single crochet stitch. So looking for that next V, the back loop, insert the hook. I'm going to go a little bit faster now. You go at your own pace. You're doing great. Keeping that tension, yarning over, pull through both loops. Insert, pull up a loop, 2 on the hook. Yarn over, pull through both loops. And so on all the way down the chain back to where we started. Insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops. Insert, yarn over, pull through both loops. Okay. And again, if you are frustrated, just take a breath, reposition, and keep trying. Okay, I've come to my last chain, and you'll see the slip knot here. That you don't count that as anything. Never put your, that's our slip knot that we started with. Do not put your hook into that. Okay, so you've just inserted into your last chain, and let me show you my best little tool, which is a stitch marker. Okay, this will save you so much frustration when you learn that you do a lot of counting in crochet. And when you're doing a project, let's say I'm making a coaster and it's a square and I'm going back and forth with my rows, well, I'm not going to want one row to have 15 stitches and one row to have 14 and one row to have 16, right? We want our edges to be pretty straight. So a stitch marker works so well in helping you keep your count. So if we were to look back at our single crochet stitches in this row, hopefully we have the right amount. Now let's go back and count. Now you know we started with a chain of 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And you might say, well, why do I have 14 when I started with a chain of 15? Well, that's because of that turning chain. So when a pattern calls for you to start by chaining 15, you know that your stitches going forward from there and different on your subsequent rows will be less. Okay, there'll be less of a count. So because we're doing single crochets, my stitch count is 14. So I'm going to count back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. This is my last V, my 14th V, and that's where I'm going to slip my stitch marker. So that when I work back this row, along this row, and I come to the end, I know that this is my last stitch and I won't put my hook into the turning chain on accident. Okay, so stitch markers are a great tool. I highly, highly recommend you have those. So what am I saying or talking about when I say turning chain? Well, when we get to the end of the row, we're going to have to turn or flip over our work to do the row going back across. And so we need to bring our stitch or our yarn up to that height. So a chain is what we're going to do. So we've made our last single crochet stitch. We should only have one loop on the hook, and now we're going to yarn over and pull through, just as if we were making a chain, and that's called your turning chain, because now we have lifted our yarn, or our stitches, I guess, up to this height of a single crochet stitch, which is one turning chain. Okay, if that makes sense. So now we're going to turn. And that means we're going to turn where we're now looking at the back side or wrong side of our work. The front side is, or right side is the side that we started with there. And you'll notice that a single crochet stitch does look different on the right side or the wrong side. Okay, that just means the front side and the back side. Okay, so we've made our turning chain, we've lifted our stitches now up to the height of this next row, and we're going to do single crochet stitches back across to our stitch marker, 14 of them. And so our turning chain never counts as a stitch. Okay, so the loop on our hook and then that turning stitch, we never want to count that as a stitch. Okay, so where am I going to be inserting my hook for this first single crochet stitch? Well, as you can see, we have those telltale V's, okay, at the top. And so now I want you to insert your hook under both loops, the back loop and the front loop together, so the entire V. So not this, not our turning chain, but that first V right here. Okay, and you'll often hear that's called the second chain from the hook. Okay, because we don't want to confuse our turning chain with an actual single crochet stitch. So this one right here, I'm going to insert my hook under both loops, the front loop and the back loop. Yarn over, pull up a loop. I now have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over again, pull through both loops. to make my single crochet stitch. And we're going to go back across this row. So again, I like to pinch with my thumb and my forefinger or my index finger and hold my yarn. Okay, again, get in position. So hold my yarn so that I can glide through my fingers. Okay, and then pinch my work so that it's anchored. Okay, so insert the hook under both V's, or the whole V, I'm sorry, both loops, front and back loop. Yarn over, pull up a loop. You should have 2 on your hook. Yarn over again, pull through those 2. And there's your single crochet stitch going back across on our second row. I'm going to go a little faster so that I can show you what happens at the end of this row. So insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook. You will get into a rhythm. And again, if you need to pause the video, or if you need to frog, which means undo and start again, go ahead and do that. I don't want you to feel frustrated or tense. This is fun. And you are learning a stitch, the single crochet stitch, that can be used for any project. When I was first starting, this was the stitch I made most of my things out of, and it's a beautiful stitch. It's the most basic, but it's beautiful, and there can be different variations, and it's just a lovely one to learn. So I've got 3 more V's, I say, 3 more single crochet stitches to do, and I'm almost to the end now. Oh, I've come to my stitch marker, so I know that this is my last one and I don't really have to worry about it. So I take the stitch marker out, I find that last V, I pinch it so I know where it is, insert my hook, pull up that loop, yarn over, and pull through both. And that is the end of my second row. And so that's how it's looking. Okay. And now let's say that this was the end of my project. So obviously you're going to be doing a lot of practice with this. I want you to just go back and forth, row after row. And again, however many chains is however wide or long your project might be. So let's say I've decided that I'm done, I'm finished, I've made a little scarf for a Barbie or something like that. Let's say that this is. And I'm ready to end. I'm ready to end my project. What do I do? What do I do to finish? And so this is called fastening off. And so you're basically going to make a slip stitch at the end. And that's really a fasten off. So you yarn over and you just pull it through as if we were making a chain, but I'm going to pull the yarn really long, and I'm going to actually snip it. I'm going to cut that off and pull that working yarn out. I no longer need that. Now I have a tail, and I'm going to cinch that really tight. I don't want that to unravel, and you can't just simply cut that close and call it a day. That's going to unravel. So this is when this darning needle comes in handy, and you could knot this a few times, but weaving in our ends or weaving in our tails, so we consider this a tail, and we don't want to see that tail obviously, but we don't want it to come unraveled. So we're going to weave it in, and that's when you just simply take it and you're going to just weave it in and out of your stitches. You really want to just hide it the best you can. You're going to go one way and then you're going to go back the other way. And some say 2 times, some say 3. You just don't want it to come undone. Now, you also don't want it to be so snaggly. See how I pulled that way too tight? Okay. You don't want it to show, so you want that to be hidden. So that's called fastening off, cutting your tail, and then weaving in your end or weaving in your tail. And then after you've weaved it in a few times, you could cut that off, and that could be the end of your project. Okay, so that's a little tip there at the end for if you decide to practice by actually making something. You could make a coaster, you could make a little baby doll blanket, you could make anything that's really rectangular, square, and just practicing going back and forth those single crochet stitches. You don't have to make a project. You could just frog it, meaning undo, and practice everything again: slip knot, chaining, single crochet. And I hope you've enjoyed learning this stitch. And the abbreviations that you might take note of for the single crochet stitch and what I've showed you today are these. So SC will be the abbreviation you see in patterns for the single crochet stitch. Fasten off will always be a capital F and a capital O to fasten off your work, and then slip stitch. And we'll talk about the slip stitch more in subsequent videos, in subsequent lessons. And then a diagram of the chain is always helpful to have too, to remember that that one in the back, it's called the back loop, and then the one closest to you, the front loop, top and bottom of the stitch when you're holding it to work. Okay, so keeping track of those is always a good idea. So I hope you've had fun learning the single crochet stitch. Practice, 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 and I will see you next time.